60 duels, 0 defeats. This is not a statistic. It is an impossibility, an anomaly in human history. One man walked through one of Japan's most violent ages, challenged the greatest swordmasters, and emerged every single time victorious. His name, Miyamoto Musashi. But the real question is not if he won. The real question is how. How does a man become invincible? The answer is not in the blade he carried. It is in the man who held it. And that man was not born a legend. He was forged. Forged by violence, by solitude, and by a relentless quest not for victory, but for perfection. Forget everything you think you know about Japan's greatest swordsman. His story is not that of a warrior. It is the story of a transformation, the journey of a bloodthirsty demon to an enlightened sage. And that journey begins, as it so often does, in mud and fury. We are at the end of the 16th century. Japan is a fractured land, bled white by a century of civil wars, the Sengoku period. A time when a man's life was worth less than the steel of his sword. It is into this chaos that a boy named Shinmen Taikazo is born. Not Musashi. Taikazo, a name he would one day have to shed, like old skin. He grows up in the province of Mimasaka, a wild child, raised without the warmth of a mother, and under the shadow of a father, Munasai, himself a master of arms, a man who allegedly taught him violence before love. The chronicles are unclear, but they paint a portrait of an indomitable boy, strong, stubborn, solitary, a child whose raw energy found no channel except confrontation. He did not play with other children. He fought. He did not learn the classics. He studied the weight of a stick, the balance of a stone. His body was his laboratory, and pain his teacher. There was no philosophy yet, no strategy, just a primal force, a rage, an instinctive certainty that he was stronger than others. A certainty he would soon have to prove, in a way that would mark the beginning of his legend. Because in the year 1596, an event occurs. An event that will serve as a detonator. Arima Keihei, an itinerant samurai, an accomplished swordsman of the Shinto Ryu school, arrives in Takazo's village. Confident, arrogant perhaps, he plants a sign in the center of the village, challenging anyone who would dare to face him. It is a common practice for warriors seeking to make a name for themselves. No one answers. No one except a 13-year-old boy, Takazo. The accounts say he simply wrote his name under Keihei's, an act of insane audacity. A child challenging a seasoned master of arms. Keihei's entourage is insulted. The community is shocked, but the challenge is made. The duel is set. This is not a game. It is a matter of life and death. And for the young Takazo, it is the very first time his raw strength would be measured against an established technique. The first test. The first real duel. The moment the wild boy would have to become, for the first time, a fighter. The outcome of this fight will not just decide a winner. It will decide the trajectory of a life. The day of the duel arrives. Picture the scene. On one side, Arima Keihei, a samurai in armor, carrying a wakizashi, a short but deadly blade. He embodies tradition, discipline, the school. On the other, Takazo, a teenager, armed, according to most accounts, with a simple wooden staff, a bow. He has no armor. He has no formal technique. He has only his strength, his speed, and a cold rage. The fight begins. Keihei, sure of himself, attacks. He expects an easy victory to punish the insolence of this child. But Takazo is no ordinary child. He dodges. He moves with an animal agility. Unpredictable. He follows no rules Keihei has ever learned. Frustrated, the experienced man makes a mistake. He throws himself forward, seeking the final blow. It's all Takazo was waiting for. He doesn't block. He doesn't parry. He counterattacks. He grabs Keihei, throws him to the ground. And before the samurai can react, Takazo strikes. Again and again, with his staff. With a violence that shocks the onlookers. When it's over, Arima Keihei is no longer breathing. A 13-year-old boy has just killed an adult samurai. The silence that follows is heavier than any scream. Takazo has won. But this victory tastes of ash. He has not only proven his strength, he has proven that he is capable of killing. And that knowledge, once acquired, never leaves you. This victory marks him. He becomes an outcast, the demon child, feared by those who watched him grow. He leaves his village, or is driven out. The accounts differ. He becomes a ronin, a masterless samurai, a wandering wave. The years that follow are formative. He wanders across Japan, living off the land, sleeping under the stars, seeking duels to survive and to test his strength. Every fight is a lesson. He learns to read his opponents. He learns that brute force is not enough. He observes. He analyzes. He begins to understand that the real fight takes place in the mind, long before the blades cross. Then comes the year 1600, a turning point for all of Japan. The Battle of Sekigahara, the largest samurai battle in history, which will decide the future of the country for the next 250 years. Takezo, then 16 or 17, joins the losing army, that of the Toyotomi clan. He fights with ferocity. He survives the carnage, one of the few on his side. He sees death on an industrial scale. He sees complex strategies, entire armies maneuvering as one man. He sees heroes fall and cowards survive. Sekigahara is a crushing defeat for his side, but for Takezo, it is a revelation. He understands that his individual strength, however great, is nothing against the power of a well-conducted strategy. He survives, but he is now on the wrong side of history, a survivor of a defeated army, a fugitive. It is at this moment, hunted, alone, that he finds refuge with a figure who will change his life, the monk Takuan Soho. Takuan Soho is no ordinary monk. He is a Zen master, a calligrapher, a poet, and an advisor to the greatest warlords in the country. He sees in Takozo something other than the demon that others see. He sees immense potential, a raw energy that needs to be channeled, not broken. Romanticized accounts, like The Stone and the Sword, describe Takuan capturing the young Takozo and hanging him from a tree for days, forcing him to confront his own demons. Although likely a fiction, this image is a perfect metaphor for what happened. Takuan forced Takozo to pause, to look inside himself. He gave him books. He taught him Zen philosophy, the art of calligraphy, the beauty of a poem. He showed him that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the ability to control oneself. It is a period of intense transformation. The fire of Takozo's rage does not go out, but he learns to contain it, to turn it into a forge. It is under Takuan's tutelage that Shinmen Takozo symbolically dies, and from his ashes, a new man is born. He takes a new name, Miyamoto Musashi. Miyamoto, from his home village. Musashi, another reading of the kanji for his first name, Takozo. This is not just a name change, it is a declaration of intent. He is no longer the wild boy, he is a man on the way of the sword. And this way inevitably leads him to the capital, Kyoto, the cultural and martial heart of Japan. It is there that he will have to prove that his transformation is real. It is there that he will challenge one of the most prestigious fencing schools in the country, the Yoshioka clan. The Yoshioka clan is an institution. For generations they have been the official instructors to the house of the Ashikaga shogun. Their name is synonymous with tradition, prestige, and a sword technique reputed to be infallible. For Musashi, the ronin from nowhere, to challenge them is an affront, an insult to their heritage. But for him it is a necessity. To prove the validity of his own way, he must measure himself against the established way. He issues his challenge to the head of the school, Yoshioka Seijuro. The duel is accepted. This is not just about two men. It is a clash of worlds. The outsider against the establishment. The innovator against the traditionalist. The duel takes place in 1604. Seijuro is armed with a real katana. Musashi, true to himself, arrives with a simple wooden sword, a bokken. Seijuro, confident in his superior technique, attacks. But Musashi, trained by years of death duels and by Takuan's philosophy, is no longer the brawler of old. He is calm, centered. He sees beyond the movements. He sees the intention. With a single, powerful, and precise blow, he breaks Seijuro's arm. The duel is over. The head of the Yoshioka clan is humiliated, defeated by a ronin with a piece of wood. The news spreads like wildfire. But the story with the Yoshioka is far from over. Seijuro's defeat is an unbearable shame for the Yoshioka clan. Command passes to his brother, Yoshioka Denshichiro, reputed to be even more talented. A second duel is immediately arranged to avenge the family's honor. This time, the stakes are even higher. It is no longer a simple duel. It is a war for the survival of the clan's reputation. Denshichiro is a master of arms. He knows that Musashi is dangerous. The fight is more intense, faster, but the result is the same. Musashi, with total concentration, delivers a fatal blow. Denshichiro falls. He will not get up again. In the space of two duels, Musashi has decapitated the leadership of the largest fencing school in Kyoto. It is an earthquake in the world of martial arts. But instead of ending the conflict, this second victory only fans the flames of hatred. The Yoshioka clan, now led by Seijuro's very young son, Hanshichiro, barely 12 years old, decides to go all in. They no longer want a duel. They want an execution. They organize an ambush. The plan is simple and brutal. They challenge Musashi to a third and final duel near the Ichijoji temple, under a pine tree. But this time, they will not come alone. Dozens of clan warriors, archers, swordsmen, armed to the teeth will hide nearby to ambush Musashi and kill him, whatever the cost. It is an act of desperation, a complete break with the code of Bushido. But they have underestimated their opponent. Musashi is not just a fighter, he has become a strategist. He senses the trap. On the day of the duel, he does something unusual. He arrives early, well before dawn. He hides, he observes, and he sees what he suspected. Dozens of men getting into position. This is no longer a duel, it is a battle. One man against an army. What to do? Fleeing would be the wisest decision, the most logical. Anyone else would have fled. But Musashi is not anyone else. He sees an opportunity to end this vendetta once and for all, and to prove something to himself. That strategy can overcome numbers. That attention can undo brute force. He waits for the right moment. Just as his enemies, believing he has fled, begin to relax, he emerges. Not at the meeting point, but behind them. He strikes the young leader, Hanshichiro, first. Chaos erupts. The Yoshioka warriors, taken by surprise, are disorganized. Their numbers become a disadvantage. They get in each other's way. Musashi, meanwhile, is a whirlwind of controlled movement. He uses the terrain. He never stands still. He fights while retreating, forcing his opponents to group together in narrow passages. It is a masterful demonstration of crowd control and spatial awareness. He is not fighting 70 men at once. He is fighting one man, 70 times in a row. The accounts of this battle have become legendary. Some say he used 2 swords for the first time, a technique that would become his signature. When the dust settles, the Yoshioka clan is annihilated. Musashi is standing alone amidst the carnage. That day at Ichijoji cemented his reputation. He is no longer just a talented duelist. He is a force of nature, a man who single-handedly destroyed an entire institution. This victory propels him into another dimension, but it also leaves him more alone than ever. After the destruction of the Yoshioka clan, Musashi's name is on everyone's lips. He is feared, respected, but also hated. He broke the codes. He humiliated a great house. He continues his Mushashugyo, his warrior's pilgrimage, traveling across Japan. But something has changed in him. The victory at Ichijoji was not joyful. It was a dark necessity. He saw how far hatred could lead men. He saw the ugliness of revenge. He begins to seek something deeper in his practice. He no longer seeks just to win. He seeks to understand the nature of combat, the nature of life and death. He faces other masters of arms, spearmen, experts in chain and sickle, warrior monks. Each duel is a conversation. He learns from each opponent. He studies their style, their psychology. He does not just defeat them, he absorbs their knowledge. It is during this time that he begins to develop his own school of thought, the Niten Ichi-Ryu, the school of the 2 heavens as one, the famous 2-sword technique. Holding a katana in one hand and a wakizashi in the other was not entirely new, but no one had systematized it like Musashi. For him it was not a gimmick, it was a philosophy. Why use only one hand when you have 2? It was an extension of his radical pragmatism. He rejected everything that was useless, everything that was pure tradition without efficiency. His technique was direct, without frills. He said, "The way of the sword is the way of life." Every movement had to have a purpose. Every decision had to be made with total clarity. He did not train in a dojo. The world was his dojo. A tree branch could be a sword. A stone could be a weapon. Everything was a matter of principle, not form. This approach baffled his opponents. They expected rituals, codified postures. Musashi offered them a brutal simplicity. He did not fight like a samurai. He fought like a man who wanted to survive and understand. During these years of wandering, he does not only fight, he also refines his mind. He takes up painting, calligraphy, sculpture, and he excels. His works, painted in sumi-e ink, are today considered masterpieces of Zen art. One of his most famous paintings, Shrike on a Dead Branch, shows a small bird, a predator, perfectly still, observing its prey. It is an image of himself. Total concentration, infinite patience, ready to explode in a moment of decisive action. This duality is the key to understanding him. He is both an artist capable of creating sublime beauty and a warrior capable of thunderous violence. He understands that the brush and the sword are governed by the same principles: balance, rhythm, concentration, and the ability to act without hesitation at the decisive moment. He is no longer just a fighter. He becomes a martial artist in the fullest sense of the term. And it is this man, at the peak of his maturity, who will head towards his greatest challenge, the duel that would make him enter, forever, into legend. The name of his next opponent resonated throughout Japan: Sasaki Kojiro, nicknamed the Demon of the Western Provinces. If Musashi was an enigma, Kojiro was a star. He was young, handsome, charismatic. He served the powerful Lord Hosokawa Tadaoki, and he was considered by many to be the greatest swordsman in the country. His specialty was the nadachi, an extremely long field sword, which he wielded with supernatural speed and precision. His signature technique was so fast, it was named the swallow turn, as it was said he could cut a swallow in mid-flight. The confrontation between Musashi and Kojiro was inevitable. It was the duel everyone was waiting for. The clash of titans. The lone ronin against the established swordsman. The pragmatic against the elegant. The shadow against the light. The duel is arranged in 1612 through Lord Hosokawa. The chosen location is a small remote island, Funajima, situated between the islands of Honshu and Kyushu, a neutral ground, perfect for a final confrontation. The stakes are immense. For Kojiro, it is the opportunity to prove that he is indeed number one by eliminating his only credible rival. For Musashi, it is the culmination of his pilgrimage. It is the ultimate test of his way. It is not about proving that he is the strongest. It is about proving that his understanding of combat is the most correct. The tension before the duel is palpable throughout the country. Bets are placed. Opinions are divided. Kojiro is the favorite of the establishment. He represents the perfect technique, the perfect weapon, the perfect style. Musashi is the outsider, the unpredictable, the man who fights with wooden swords and follows no rules. The night before the duel, Musashi does something disconcerting. While Kojiro probably spends the night meditating, polishing his blade, preparing himself mentally, Musashi, he seems completely relaxed. Some accounts say he slept soundly, but he showed no signs of nervousness. This is not arrogance, it is confidence. An absolute confidence in his preparation, not that of the night before, but that of the last 20 years. The fight has already begun in his mind, and he already has a plan. The morning of April 13th, 1612, Kojiro arrives on the island at the agreed time. At dawn, he is dressed in his finest clothes, his long sword, the drying pole, at his side. He is the very image of the perfect samurai, ready for his moment of glory. He waits. The sun rises. An hour passes. Then two. Musashi is not there. The tension mounts. The officials present grow impatient. Kojiro, meanwhile, begins to boil inwardly. Is this an insult? A mark of cowardice? Every minute that passes is a psychological attack. Every minute his calm, his concentration erodes. This is exactly what Musashi wanted. When, after nearly 3 hours of delay, the small fishing boat carrying Musashi finally appears on the horizon, Kojiro is no longer the calm and centered fighter he was at dawn. He is an angry man, a man whose ego has been stung, and an angry man is a man who makes mistakes. The fight has not yet begun, but Kojiro is already losing it. Musashi gets off the boat. His appearance is a shock. He is not dressed for a formal duel. His hair is messy. His clothes are simple, almost sloppy. He seems barely awake, and in his hand he is not holding a katana. He is holding a piece of wood, a bokken. But this is not just any bokken. During the crossing, he carved a spare boat oar into a weapon. He intentionally made it longer than Kojiro's nodachi. It is an act of absolute tactical genius. He identified his opponent's greatest asset, the reach of his blade, and neutralized it before the first exchange even happened. Kojiro, seeing this, is furious. He draws his sword and throws his scabbard into the water. "You won't be needing that again," he allegedly shouted. A display of confidence, but also a mistake. Musashi is said to have replied calmly, "If you have no more need for your scabbard, then you are already dead." A mind that does not contemplate the possibility of sheathing its blade is a mind that has already lost its flexibility. The two men face each other on the beach. The sun is now high in the sky. Kojiro, impatient to get it over with, attacks first. He unleashes his famous technique, the swallow turn, an incredibly fast strike, descending then ascending, designed to be unstoppable. But Musashi had anticipated it. He knew that Kojiro's first attack would be his most dangerous. As Kojiro strikes, Musashi does two things simultaneously. He jumps back, narrowly avoiding the blade that cuts the headband on his forehead, and he strikes, a single blow, downward, with all his strength, with his heavy, oversized bokken. The blow hits Kojiro squarely on the head. The sound is dull, decisive. The greatest swordsman in Japan collapses onto the sand. He will never get up again. The duel lasted a few seconds. A single exchange, a single blow. Musashi stands, looking at his defeated opponent. There is no cry of triumph, no victorious posture. Just a silent bow to the officials, a glance at Kojiro's body. Then he gets back in his boat and leaves the island. The island that, on that day, would be renamed Ganryu-jima, the island of Ganryu, Kojiro's style, an eternal tribute to the man he had just vanquished. This victory is the pinnacle of his career as a duelist. He is 30 years old. He has defeated 60 opponents. He has proven definitively the superiority of his way. But this victory is also an end. What do you do when you have reached the top? When there is no one left to challenge? The victory over Kojiro does not bring him joy. It brings him a profound realization. The way of the sword, if it only leads to the death of the other, is an empty path. He has spent his life perfecting the art of killing. He must now spend the rest of his life understanding the art of living. After the duel of Ganryu-jima, Musashi stops fighting. He will never again participate in a duel for his personal glory. The quest for victory is over. Another quest begins, the quest for wisdom. The years following the duel of Ganryu-jima are a period of profound change for Musashi. He has proven his mastery of strategy, of heiho. Now he seeks to apply it to all aspects of his life. He continues to travel, but his goal is no longer to find opponents. It is to observe, to learn, to teach. He adopts a son, Iori, and begins to pass on his knowledge. He enters the service of various lords, not as a simple swordsman, but as an advisor, a strategist. His reputation is such that his mere presence is a deterrent. He participates in the Shimabara Rebellion in 1638, but this time he is on the side of the ruling power, the Tokugawa shogunate. He is there as a supervisor, not as a frontline fighter. Accounts say he was injured, not by a blade, but by a stone thrown by a peasant. An ironic reminder that even the greatest swordsman is not immune to chance. This event confirms his idea that true invincibility is not physical, it is spiritual. He spends more and more time practicing the arts, painting, sculpture, poetry. These practices are not hobbies, they are the heart of his discipline. For him, painting a Zen circle with a single brushstroke requires the same concentration, the same emptiness of mind as delivering a decisive sword blow. There is no room for hesitation, no room for the ego. Just the pure gesture born of a deep understanding. His works of art are proof of his transformation. The fury of the young Takezo has given way to the tranquility of the artist Musashi. Violence has been sublimated into beauty. He seeks to reach a state he calls the void. Not nothingness, but a state of mind so fluid, so adaptable, that it can respond perfectly to any situation, without being encumbered by thought, fear, or doubt. This is the ultimate goal of his practice. To reach a point where body and mind are one, where action is as natural as breathing. He understands that the way of the sword is not an end in itself. It is a tool for polishing the mind, a tool for understanding the principles that govern the universe. He writes, "To know one way is to know them all." The carpenter, the strategist, the artist, the swordsman, all, if they push their art to its highest level, eventually touch upon the same universal truths: discipline, concentration, rhythm, balance, the ability to see things as they are, without the filter of our own desires or fears. It is this philosophy that he will seek to codify. He feels that his life is coming to an end. He has accumulated a lifetime of knowledge, of fights, of reflections. He does not want this wisdom to die with him. He has one last battle to fight, not with a blade, but with a brush. He must leave a trace, a testament. In 1643, Musashi, sensing his end was near, retired from the world. He did not enter a monastery. He chose a place that suited him, a cave, the Rigondo Cave, the Spirit Rock Cave, on Mount Iwato near Kumopo. It was there, in the most complete solitude and destitution, that he would undertake his last great work. He was not going to fight, he was going to write. For months, he meditated and wrote the summary of his entire life, of his entire philosophy. This book is Go-Rin no Sho, the Book of 5 Rings, or, more precisely, the Book of 5 Elements. It is not a technical manual of swordsmanship. It is a treatise on strategy, applicable to any field of life. Each ring represents an element, a facet of his thought. The Book of Earth, the Book of Water, the Book of Fire, the Book of Wind, and the Book of the Void. Darker Stiligri. The Book of Earth lays the foundations. It is the basis of his strategy. In it, he speaks of the importance of righteousness, discipline, and knowing one's own path. He insists that the way of the sword must be practiced with sincerity, day and night. Think lightly of yourself, he writes, and deeply of the world. An invitation to humility and observation. The Book of Water uses the metaphor of water to describe the ideal state of mind. Water has no shape, it adapts to its container. It can be calm and reflective, or a devastating torrent. The warrior's spirit must be like water, fluid, adaptable, capable of moving from stillness to explosive action in an instant. It is here that he describes the more technical aspects of his posture, his gaze, how to hold the sword, but always in terms of principles, not rigid rules. The Book of Fire deals with strategy in the heart of combat. This is the most concrete part. In it, he talks about how to take the initiative, how to destabilize the opponent, how to use the environment to one's advantage. He describes psychological techniques, like arriving late for his duel against Kojiro. He talks about the importance of becoming the enemy, of thinking like him to anticipate his movements. Every sentence is direct, pragmatic, there is no mysticism, just a cold, lucid analysis of the dynamics of a conflict. The Book of Wind is a critique of other schools of swordsmanship. This is not out of arrogance. It is to highlight what he considers to be errors. Schools that focus too much on the length of the sword, on rigid postures, or on overly complex techniques. For Musashi, anything that is not directly effective is dead weight. He deconstructs traditions to keep only the essential. It is a call to critical thinking, to never accept a technique simply because it is traditional. Our call to critical thinking, to never accept a technique simply because it is traditional. And finally, the Book of the Void. It is the shortest, the most philosophical, and the most profound. The void, for Musashi, is not nothingness. It is the state beyond thought, beyond knowledge. It is the state where one perceives things as they are, without the filter of our prejudices, our fears, or our desires. It is the state of pure potentiality. In the void, he writes, is virtue, and no evil. Wisdom has existence, principle has existence, the way has existence, but the spirit is void. This is the ultimate goal of his practice. To reach a point where one acts spontaneously and perfectly, without needing to think. It is the state of the artist who paints effortlessly, the musician who improvises flawlessly, the warrior who wins without the intention of winning. It is the top of the mountain, the point where the warrior and the sage become one. The Book of Five Rings is his legacy. It is the sum of 60 years of life, of 60 duels, condensed into a few pages. It is the testament of a man who began his life with brute violence and ended it with the search for absolute wisdom. A few weeks after finishing his manuscript, he gives it to his closest disciple. Then he prepares to die as he lived, with calm and lucidity. On May 19, 1645, Miyamoto Musashi passes away. He did not die on a battlefield, nor in a duel. He died peacefully, of natural causes, at the age of 61. For a man who spent his life in the company of death, this is perhaps his greatest victory. He chose his moment. He left his mark. He died in full possession of his faculties, after having accomplished his last mission. His death is as instructive as his life. It shows us that the warrior's path does not necessarily lead to a violent end. It can also lead to peace, to fulfillment. The circle is complete. The wild boy who killed his first opponent at 13 became the wise old man who wrote a book on strategy and life, before passing away serenely. His legend, however, is just beginning. The Book of Five Rings will cross the centuries. It will be studied not only by martial artists, but also by military strategists, business leaders, artists, and anyone seeking to understand the principles of strategy and personal achievement. In Japan, Musashi becomes a folk hero, an almost mythological figure, a symbol of the strength, determination, and indomitable spirit of the samurai. His duels are recounted in plays, novels, films. His life becomes an inexhaustible source of inspiration. But in turning him into a myth, we risk forgetting the man who doubted, the man who suffered from loneliness, the man who had to fight his own demons before he could face those of others. The real lesson of Musashi is not that he was a Superman, it is that he was profoundly human. So, how? How could one man win 60 duels and never know defeat? The answer, after journeying through his life, becomes clearer. It was not the strength of his arms. It was not the speed of his blade. It was not even his famous two-sword technique. It was his mind. It was his ability to see reality as it was. without illusion. Each duel for him was a problem to be solved, not a test of strength. Against Arima Kihei, the problem was the overconfidence of an adult facing a child. The solution: unpredictable violence. Against the Yoshioka clan, the problem was the weight of tradition and the pride of an institution. The solution: strategy and the breaking of codes. Against Sasaki Kojiro, the problem was the perfect technique and the superior reach of a long blade. The solution: psychological warfare and tactical innovation. Musashi did not win because he was better at swordsmanship. He won because he was better at problem solving. He saw the fight in its entirety, not just the exchange of blades. He saw the terrain, the weather, the psychology of his opponent, his own mental state. Everything was information. Everything was a weapon. His invincibility was not physical invulnerability. It was absolute mental flexibility. He was not attached to any weapon, any technique, any idea. If a wooden sword was more effective than a katana, he used a wooden sword. If arriving late was necessary to win, he arrived late. He was free. Free from conventions. Free from the fear of looking foolish. Free from the attachment to victory itself. He sought the most direct path to the result, even if that path was strange, unexpected, or brutal. This is the heart of his strategy. A total attention to the present moment, and a constant adaptation to the reality of the situation. He did not seek to impose his will on the world. He sought to dance with reality, however chaotic it might be. This is a lesson that extends far beyond the battlefield. How many times are we paralyzed by our own rules, by what we should do, by the fear of others' judgment? Musashi teaches us to break free from these chains, to look the problem in the face, and to use the tools we have, here and now, to solve it. He shows us that mastery is not the accumulation of knowledge, it is simplification. It is the ability to remove everything superfluous to keep only the essential. His life was a long quest to find this essential. He started with rage, then he added technique, then strategy, then philosophy, and at the end, in his cave, he removed everything to keep only the void, pure consciousness, the ability to act in perfect harmony with the moment. This is perhaps the final answer to the question, how? How does one become invincible? By ceasing to want to be, by seeking not to defeat others but to master oneself, by understanding that the only true opponent we will ever face is ourselves, our fears, our doubts, our ego. Musashi spent 60 years fighting this opponent, and in the end, he won. The legacy of Miyamoto Musashi is not a score of 60-0. It is a path, a way, the way of strategy, of Heiho. A way that teaches us that every aspect of our lives can be a practice, that every challenge can be an opportunity to learn, that every failure is information, that discipline is not a punishment, but a liberation. He reminds us that specialization is a weakness if it is not balanced by a global understanding. The warrior must also be an artist. The artist must also understand strategy. The strategist must also have a heart. It is the search for the complete man, the man who can hold a brush with the same assurance as a sword, the man who can build and, if necessary, destroy, the man who can be alone without being lonely, the man who can look death in the face without flinching, not because he is fearless, but because he has accepted the ephemeral nature of all things. Today, in a world where conflicts are more psychological than physical, Musashi's lessons are more relevant than ever. His life asks us a question: what is our way? What is our sword? Is it our art, our business, our science, our relationships? And how do we practice it? With total attention? With a constant will to improve? Are we willing to question traditions, to break the rules if necessary, to find a more effective, more just, more true solution? Are we willing to face our own contradictions, our own shadow side, to transform ourselves? Miyamoto Musashi did not leave behind ready-made answers. He left a map drawn with ink and blood, a map that leads not to invincibility, but to clarity, to freedom, to self-mastery. And this map, even today, is available to anyone who has the courage to follow in his footsteps. The path is difficult, it is lonely, it requires a lifetime of dedication, but its destination, Musashi tells us, is worth it. Because at the end of the way of the sword, one does not find death, one finds life, in its purest, most intense, and most meaningful form. 60 duels, 0 defeats. It was not luck, it was not magic, it was a lifetime spent polishing his mind until it became sharper than any blade. That was Miyamoto Musashi, the warrior, the artist, the philosopher, the man who learned to conquer by seeking to understand. History is full of warriors like this. warriors whose stories deserve to be told. If you want to hear them, subscribe.